Natural protocols and biohacks. So we are the last presentation here, and it's the last pillar of natural testosterone optimization. It's not at the top because it's the most important. I would say it's actually the least important out of all the other ones, but it is important if you are looking to take your testosterone to as basically max it out as high as it can go. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Just have to close the door. So it's it's the most important if you've got everything else dialed in. So, detoxification is at the bottom because it's a foundation. And I keep mentioning this because it's going to come up a little bit today in some of the extra biohacks. They are just detoxification in another form, in a more powerful way. But as long as everything else is, let's just say you've done 80% of the work. So in the detox, the circadian rhythm, exercise, and food, this stuff is really powerful, really, really powerful. So I just wanted to start with that. Get everything else right as much as possible first, and then only then layer these on. And we're going to go over 6 main ones today, or actually 5 main ones. I'm going to expose some other ones, introduce some other ones to you. And how do you implement these? So I suggest starting at the top. I'm going to start with the light viewing and the breathing. These ones are the most important, and these ones are also the easiest to integrate into your life without thinking too much about them. The other ones that I go over take a little bit more conscious effort. And so a good way to approach them is by doing experiments, let's just say 30-day experiments on yourself. And you can test before and after if you want to, or you can just do an anecdotal check-in with yourself and see how they're working. And the reason I've laid them this way is because they take a little bit more. It's not as easy to integrate them into your lifestyle. But let's start with light viewing habits. And I just want to recap this. Just make sure no one's in the waiting room. We're good. Yeah, good. So with the light viewing habits, we're going back to the sleep wake cycle and the cortisol cycle. It's all about cortisol and melatonin, but mostly cortisol here. So when it comes to light, think about this in 3 phases. We have the morning, during the day, and the evening. Quite easy. The morning. So we've spoken about this before a few times actually. So important to view sunlight or mimic sunlight as soon as you wake up in the morning. And this is so important because it mimics, it's about the cortisol awakening response. So a high spike of cortisol in the morning is good for 2 reasons. One, it sets up the foundation for melatonin at night. And 2, cortisol in the morning means less cortisol in the evening. You need to get it out of your system. You don't want it in your system at nighttime because it fights for testosterone. So again, just to recap, if you can get out in the sunshine in the morning too, do it. I'll give you some options if you can't. But if you can, on sunny days, 10 minutes, and this is all within an hour of waking up. So you don't have to run outside, but within an hour of waking up, you want to get into the sun. And the less sun there is, the more time you should spend out there. So really good time to go outside and do a morning walk. Really good time to go outside and do, some exercise if that's what you do as well. You just habit stacking things here. And it's important to note that if you wear glasses or contacts, that's fine, but don't wear sunglasses. You actually want to get the light into your eyes. So I'm not saying stare at the sun and burn your retinas, but it's important for light. Just being outside, this will happen. It's important for light to get into your eyes because it activates your hypothalamus in your brain and your pineal gland. Really important. So if you can't do this naturally, which is in a lot of cases, these are the options, right? We have sunrise alarm clocks, a sad lamp. I have one right here I'm working with. And then if you get up and you're on the go straight away, light therapy glasses. And there's also a version of the light therapy glasses that you can put on the visor in your car. Because I know at times in my life, I'm up and I'm in the car and I'm going somewhere. So this stuff's really important. And it seems silly. Like if you see someone wear this, it seems silly, but it's actually a big deal. It makes a huge impact. You feel it. You feel it very quickly if you're doing this stuff early. So if you go from a period of waking up and spending time in the dark to and using this stuff, oh my God. Give me 1 second. I'm going to close my window. It's getting a bit noisy here. I'm just going to let Joe into the call. Great. Sounds good, Hitesh. I've just let Joey in. So, hey Joey, how are you, man? We've just started, so I'll let you just like sink in. I'm just going to go back 2 slides for you just to show you where we're at. We've started with these are the protocols we're going to go over today. And as a recap, I recapped everything we've gone over. These things are good to add on when you have got everything else in check, 80% for these pillars. So most important to get these dialed in, and then we can start layering these in. So we're starting with light viewing habits, which we've spoken about a little bit. So not too much of this will be new to you, but there will be some new stuff. And I'm saying we think about this in 3 phases: morning, during the day, and nighttime. When it comes to morning, we spoke about this extensively in the sleep and circadian rhythm stuff. So you want, within the first hour of the day, try to get some sunlight into your eyes. It's not so important on the skin early in the morning, but into your eyes, which just means being outside, right? I know you wake up earlier, Joey. So here's the options for that. We spoke about these as well. Experiment with this type of thing. So I've got a sad lamp, which I've been experimenting with. There's light therapy glasses, and if you're up and in the car, you've got like a light therapy version of this where it sticks onto your visor. The stuff is really powerful, and again, this is just to kickstart your cortisol awakening response. So I've been experimenting a lot with this because I'm up before the sun as well, and I'm really amazed at how quickly I'm physiologically feeling the effects of this. So if you that's phase 1, right? In the morning, I think we've spoken about that, so we're pretty clear on that. Kickstart that cortisol awakening response, and if you're doing it in the dark, get some artificial light. Now, phase 2, throughout the day, the goal here is just to get vitamin D as much as possible. As we spoke about last week in the supplements, deficiency in vitamin D is a direct inverse correlation with testosterone. So low vitamin D, low testosterone, which means we need to get as much on our skin as possible in the day. So phase 1 in the morning was the eyeballs. Phase 2, middle of the day, is the skin, right? So not everyone has access to this. You can't always go outside. I am very lucky where I live. I have a lot of sun. I have my home office, so I just get outside at least twice a day and walk around with my shirt off when I'm having a break. I exercise outside too. That's the best option, but if that's not available, there are the artificial versions as well, right? So here's a fitness influencer I love, Eric Kinman. He has a desk set up outside. That's great. That's like a goal for me in the future. I'm in a rental right now, so it's not going to happen. It's just not suitable. But we have these vitamin D lamps as well. This is the most popular one. And this is a Spurdy lamp. It's expensive. I'll give you another option. You can do it way cheaper. But how it works is it's basically, it just mimics UVB rays. So we have different lights emitting different wavelengths. Like a red light panel doesn't have UVB. UVB is actually the sun ray that actually penetrates the atmosphere into the earth. So when you get it on your skin, it's just signaling to your skin, which is a endocrine organ, remember, really important. It's signaling that, hey, it's time to create vitamin D internally, which is way more effective than taking a tablet. You can't take sunshine in a pill. That's something someone once said to me, a doctor, a functional doctor, and it stuck with me. You need to get it through the skin. So if you can go outside 20, 30 minutes a day of midday sun exposure, at least 3 times a week. If you can't, set up one of these artificial sources and start experimenting with them. But this stuff is not something you have to experiment. This stuff does work. It really does work. I'll show you some research in a moment, but another important thing to point out, if your ancestors come from a high light environment, so the darker your skin is, the more you're going to have to do this because your skin is just not as adaptive to sunlight. So if you come from if you have a very light tone of skin, this is going to be more effective at smaller doses. And this is the cheap option. So I mentioned this before, the Spurdy lamp is $600 or something, way too expensive. You can hack your own together. It's really easy. I'm going to send you guys a link. There's a guy that posted in Reddit this amazing thread. He's got a website too. He also posted his blood results showing that it works. So his vitamin D levels are gone from 23, which is below the range, to just above the range. And so he's basically just got a reptile lamp and hooks it up like this, and he stands in front of it a little bit during the day, a few times a week. And that's exactly what happens with a reptile, right? Reptile lamps emit UVB rays. Reptiles need it, and it signals to their bodies to create vitamin D too, right? We're the same. And this Spurdy D lamp is just a really expensive version of that. Like, great business that they've created, but you don't need to go and spend $600. You can spend, I think it was $80, he said, to set this up. Really
Did you say that
important.
was a red light?
Sorry?
Did you say that was a red light lamp?
No, this is a vitamin D lamp. So it's a reptile lamp. I'll send you the link to the article.
Oh.
It's literally just a reptile lamp, like reptile globes inside of a casing. So yeah. It's what this brand doesn't want you to know, because that's essentially what they've done as well.
Oh wait, are you saying, like, when you say a reptile lamp, you mean like when people have like pet lizards and stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant that was like the brand or something.
No, yeah, sorry. I should have clarified that. It's literally a lizard lamp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just a hack, it's that brand Spurdy have just rebranded reptile lamps and put a fat margin on it. Don't need to do that. I am in a high light environment, so I'm not doing this right now, so I haven't actually used this, but the guy's got his results. It's a really amazing article. I'll send that through. And just a quick bit of research here. So they actually tested this with a UVB lamp, right? Not with sun. So they got them to do it for 20 to 30 minutes a week, which was similar to like midday sun exposure. 10 to 12 treatments, and then measured their blood hormone levels, which is really important. It wasn't their saliva, it was their blood after this, right? Also asked them about their mood, sexual feelings, and it was really dramatic. They showed an increase in, sex steroid hormones, including testosterone. But this is the part about your ancestors. It was more significant in men where they had like lighter and whiter skin, so it was more powerful. And then both men and women reported, more libido basically after these treatments. Sometimes just after one or two. So it's really promising if you live in an area with not much light. And also really important, like me, if you work inside, like I'm inside right now, and I've got another tip about this in a moment, but super important to do something like this if you spend most of your time inside working on a screen, which is 90% of the population at this point and only going to go up. And so this is what I'm talking about in this instance throughout the day. So we're still in phase 2 here. If this isn't realistic, set up your own rig. So this is my office that I'm working at right now. I've got my SAD lamp there on the right, the small one. I have full spectrum light bulbs, so they actually emit UVB rays. And that's enough for me while I'm working, but some people go as far as turning their whole house into, light stations. Like, there's a concept called malillumination. It's like malnutrition. We biologically developed outside, and then now we spend all this time inside. And you can feel this really fast by setting up some things like this. You don't need to go this far. Like, I think this guy was doing a really big experiment. I have started like this maybe 2 weeks ago. I got this set up, and I feel amazing. My energy is through the roof. I haven't tested my testosterone in the last month, but I feel like on fire. Like, I'm firing on all cylinders right now. I've been doing everything as well. It's not just this, but I was amazed at how much more energy and clarity I could have later in the day just by setting this up. So I'll drop some links for you guys on how to set this up too. It's really simple. It's like a light bulb splitter in a standard lamp socket. I just took off the covering, and I got some full spectrum light bulbs, and that's it. So throughout the day, if you guys are working inside and you're in a dark environment, this is a massive one it's like a really easy win. So phase 3, nighttime. I'm just going to go through it really quickly because we spoke about this as well. Just block blue light, right? So in the morning, we're trying to get more blue light. to kickstart our cortisol response, and at nighttime we're trying to dampen it, especially because we're inside on screens, etc. So get a pair of blue light blocking glasses at the very least, or if you don't want to use those, you can get bulbs, put them around your house, and just turn on those lamps at night. It creates a really cool feeling as well, to be honest. So that was the light stuff, easy win. And that's where everyone should start with these extra protocols, because as I mentioned at the start, before you were here, Joey, with the light stuff, it's set and forget. You set up these things in your house, or these routines, and you don't have to think about them more. Nasal breathing, a little bit more, right? So we went over this. The most important thing in terms of breathing is, and so this is separate to vitamin D, this is a new phase, is controlling your cortisol, and we control it mostly through the way we breathe in an unconscious way. So if we consciously control our nasal breathing throughout the day, eventually it will become unconscious while we sleep. And as we learn, if we're nasal breathing while we sleep, we are producing more testosterone and sleeping better in the REM sleep stage. If we're mouth breathing while we sleep, we're building up cortisol, and we have a build-up of cortisol in our system at night, stealing our testosterone from us. So it's something you have to manage. Over time, this is going to have more and more of a positive effect on your testosterone as you practice it. So nasal breathing, and this is what I mentioned just before, right? Our diet is dialed in. We're eating high-fat diet. We've got cholesterol in our diet, and which means we're producing the sex steroid hormones. But again, if we have too much cortisol, it's stealing from this path, and we don't have as much testosterone. So that stuff's very, very important to understand that. We can't just do one thing. We can't just do nasal breathing and then not focus on our diet. We need to have the cholesterol to begin with. Once you have the cholesterol to begin with, and we focus on the nasal breathing and the cortisol control, we're going to start to see improvements, right? Good thing is that nasal breathing is like a snowball effect. So the more you do it, the more your nasals dilate, the easier it becomes, and the more of a habit it becomes. I know, Joe, you're dealing with you had a nose surgery, I think you mentioned, and you're doing saline flushes at the moment. So you want to keep doing that stuff, obviously, but you really want to practice this stuff to start to make it more unconscious. And so that's the big problem with nasal breathing, right? Breathing is an unconscious habit. We've done it our whole lives. And so how do we become a nasal breather? How to become more of a nasal breather without always forgetting, right? Because I can give you guys some tips, but then when we go off into our everyday life, it's so hard to remember to do this. And so the answer is simple. It's habit stacking. Have you read James Clear's work, Joey? Well, I'm not sure if anyone's looked. So James Clear is the guy who wrote, he's the habits guy. Atomic Habits is his book. And Hitesh is still here. You can hear me. That's good. So he has this, it's not his concept, but it's an amazing book. And he talks about you can transform your life with the power of habits, right? We are just habit machines. That's all we are as humans. So if we understand how to use them to our advantage, it's powerful, very powerful. So habit stacking is simply the concept of using one habit as a cue to trigger another habit, right? So the things that we do every day, you might wake up and drink water, right? That's a habit. If you add another habit onto the end of that habit, like let's say you drink water and maybe you want to take 5 deep breaths, it will be automatic because you already do one habit, drinking the water. And then if you stack a habit onto the end of that, it's gonna create this chain reaction of habits, right? It works in a negative way if you're not conscious of it, but if you are conscious of it, it works in a positive way. So it's an amazing thing to think about what habits you have already integrated into your life, and you use those to stack the other habits. Just makes it easier. So for nasal breathing, how we can make it unconscious is we can habit stack nasal breathing and mewing, which I'll talk about, which is tongue and jaw exercises, as much as possible throughout our lives. And I've been doing this. It's great. Here are some ideas from me. I can't tell you exactly where to do it because I don't know the intricacies of your days and habits, but here are some ones that work for me. So when I drive, I have a post-it note on my dash that just reminds me to start mewing. So every time I drive now, which is probably, depending on where I am in my life, 30 minutes a day more, I'm practicing my mewing exercises, which is great. I don't have to think about it. I just get in the car and I do it. when I'm eating, I'm doing mewing exercises to slow out my meal. So I'll have a few bites of my meal, then I'll do a few. And now I just associate this with eating, so I do it all the time. Also helps with digestion because I'm not eating too fast. Used to be a big problem of mine. Exercising. So as I said, your nasals will dilate over time, your nasal passages. They're not fixed. And so when you exercise, try to start doing some of your sessions using nasal breathing. So a lot of athletes will use mouth tape. I sometimes use this in the gym now as well. And there's also myospots. I'll talk about these in a second. I mentioned these. It's literally, it's related to mewing. So it's a little piece of candy. It's not candy, right? It looks like a piece of candy, and you stick it to the roof of your mouth. And because it's there, it forces you to put your tongue up on it. It's just a weird thing. You want to put your tongue there. I do that every time I exercise now. I do that when I go for yoga. I sometimes do it when I go for a walk as well, just to remind myself to assume the posture, the facial posture, which is something we do in mewing. And so try to have a think about as much as possible what things you do every day, where you can either remind yourself and start habit stacking to practice nasal breathing more. And then the more you're doing it, I would say now throughout the day, I'm doing this for at least 3 hours, mewing or nasal breathing. And it's starting to become more unconscious. I notice at night now, I don't have to tape my mouth because I'm having great sleep and I'm nasal breathing. So habit stacking is the powerful thing. And this is mewing. This is what I was talking about, just in case Hitesh hasn't been introduced to this. So it's just the concept of, it's like orthodontistry. Using braces is one school of thought, and orofacial myology is another. And you see people talk about this a lot for jaw gains and getting a chisel. And it is true, if you have good mouth and tongue posture, it's going to change the shape of your face. It's obviously more effective at younger ages. So this is big for children, but it just takes longer, and you can start it at any age and get results. But it's not about how your jaw looks, right? That's the thing that gets people excited about it, because who doesn't want to have a chiseled jawline? But what it is really originally used for is to help your face structure so you don't look weird. Like, look at this picture, just a drooped chin, a drooped face, but also nasal breathing. It helps you breathe through your nose, which is how we should be breathing. So it's really hard for me to give you the exercises right now. I've created a video, but I'm going to just show you 2 examples right now. I'll run through this stuff first. First thing is, right, eat hard foods. So I love just chewing on jerky throughout the day, beef jerky, biltong. If you don't eat that, I also chew on desiccated coconut. I have a jar in my car, I'm just chewing it. There's something called mastic gum. It's from Greece. It's literally sap from a tree, right? It tastes like pine, like the scent of pine wood. And you can just chew on this, and it's like gum that gets harder as you chew it. This stuff is all important, because if you think about it, the reason that we have problems with facial structure is because we're eating soft foods. We didn't used to have that problems. If you read, there's a few books about breathing, and they looked at the skulls of our ancestors before processed foods came into the picture, and they were eating hard foods a lot, right? They were hunter-gatherers. They were eating nuts. They were eating roots. They were killing animals and chewing on the meat for a long time. They're making their own jerky. So they didn't have these problems. Convenience has caused these problems. So as much as you can have hard foods to chew on in your life, the better. There's also, so mewing, let me go over this for a second. So mewing is just tongue exercises. There's one called, the most important one, I believe, is it's called tongue tracing. So what you do is you get your tongue and you trace your gums around like this in a circle. So you go one way, then you go the other, and it burns after a while. It really burns. It's working out your jaws, working out your tongue. There's a few other ones as well, and they all are based on your tongue posture. So at a resting rate, your tongue should be stuck to the roof of your mouth. Obviously, you can't see it when I do it. And then your mouth should be closed. That's how you should be going through the world, right? Like this guy's probably doing it now. Imagine his tongue is stuck to the roof of his mouth is closed. He's obviously going to be breathing through his nose if he's like that, right? And then there's ways to strengthen your tongue by assuming that posture and then opening your jaw, putting pressure on your tongue, and then pulling your tongue down. So I'll send you guys these videos. There are programs. There's so much stuff on this as well. Like, it's everywhere. It's best described through video. There's a mewing app, which is mewing is the same thing. I mean, it's one part of this. Orofacial myology is the industry. Mewing is just tongue exercises developed by one of the, I guess, orthodontists who has pioneered this. His name is Mike Mew, I think, or something Mew. He's got an app called mewing.app. I've used it. It's okay. It is a paid app. I think it's pretty cheap, and he's just like made a good program for it. But you don't have to do that. As I said, if you habit stack, you just start doing this stuff unconsciously throughout the day. Once you've put some reminders around the places and you've started doing it for a month or so. Ignore this shit, right? You don't want to chew these jaw exercises. It's just a fad, okay? And this kind of goes hand in hand with this. Like, I got this chewing gum, the mastic gum, and I went hard. And I started chewing it all day, every day for a month, and it almost fucking screwed my jaw up. It will work the joint of your jaw. So it's more important to have the mewing exercises are more important than the chewing. This stuff is good, but you don't want to overdo it because you can give yourself arthritis in your jaw. It's more about the muscles of your tongue and your face and your jaw. It's less about just chewing because that works the joint, right? This stuff is a fad. You don't need it. You don't even need the app if you habit stack, as I mentioned. But if you're going to start anywhere, start with a little bit of this stuff and then do some mewing exercises every day. Start there and build up.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Just real quick.
Of course.
The tongue on the roof of the mouth, the placement of that, is that where the roof of your mouth touches the top part of your teeth, or is that back further where the roof of your mouth goes up?
So if you try to do it now, I'll explain you through it. Your tongue doesn't want to be touching the back of your teeth.
It does not.
It doesn't want to be touching it, but it wants to be close to it. So my tongue's not going to go directly up. It's going to go, like, if you try to imagine, your tongue should kind of be flat on the roof of your mouth, not like the point of your tongue hitting there, right?
Oh, almost like a curve.
Almost like a curve, yeah. So these apps, and there's a lot of videos, I can send you some that explain this. Once you get it.
So it's that little hump right after where your teeth touch.
Yeah.
Up there, and that little bit of hump right after on the other side of your gums there.
Yeah. Imagine like half an inch or quarter of an inch back from your teeth, just a little bit, just not touching your teeth, but close to it.
Okay, not that big dip in the middle.
No, not that's too far up. If you've gone up,
that's what I was asking. Okay. Second question on that same train of thought: mouth closed, tongue in that position. Are your teeth supposed to be touching, the top teeth and the bottom teeth touching, or is there supposed to be a gap?
You'll have an overbite if you do it, depending on how your jawline is right now or how your teeth is.
I have a natural overbite anyway.
Yeah, so that's good. You'll have an overbite when you assume this position. It's going to force you eventually to have a natural overbite. You know, it's going to conform to that. So again, these things.
I was going to say, it's like it takes a lot of work for me to like move my bottom jaw forward to make the bottom teeth touch the top teeth.
Yeah.
No, I don't need to do that. Just work on the tongue, and everything else will develop.
Yeah, work on the tongue. Yeah, exactly. And so the tongue tracing thing I mentioned is really easy to do. There's a few exercises, right? The main one's the tongue tracing, and as I said, so if I assume the position of my tongue, the correct position, so I'm sticking it up to the roof of my mouth, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain this, but I'll show you a video too. I'll give you a link to a video. What happens then is I create a suction by sucking my saliva, which means it sucks my tongue to the ceiling of my mouth even more. And then what I do is I open my jaw, and it's like that suction is, my tongue is stuck there and it's pulling against it now. So it's kind of like adding resistance. So if I just show you, and then eventually it pulls my tongue down. So let me go again. Like,
oh, wow.
My tongue is stuck to the roof of my mouth. And by opening my jaw down, I can feel the tension. It feels like the bottom of my tongue is really tense. Eventually, it pulls down, right? Because the force is too much. So that one, plus the tongue tracing. they hurt. They hurt like a motherfucker, but you get better at it. You start to feel it. It's just a workout for your mouth, right?
Yeah,
So
I've been trying to do the tracing when I drive,
right,
since you told me about it, and then I've been trying to consciously put my tongue on the roof of my mouth whenever I'm just sitting working and stuff. Just
yeah,
whenever I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, tongue to the roof.
yeah. So yeah, use the power of habit stacking. Like I have post-it notes on my computer screen now. I have mouth tape as well, like not just for when you sleep. If you're not in a meeting with the client or something, and maybe you're sitting at your computer for an hour, sometimes I'll just tape my mouth up, because if your mouth is taped, you have to breathe through your nose, right? Okay, let me keep going. So that's the breathing stuff. It's really simple, but it's really powerful. Light habits, breathing, most important things. Let's get into some other protocols. So I just want to talk about cold exposure for a moment. We spoke about cold exposure again in sleep and circadian rhythm, doing it in the morning as a way to boost your cortisol awakening response. This is really interesting too. So again, these protocols from now on are ones that there is some science, or maybe there's no science, but these are ones that everyone should experiment with themselves, because no one's going to invest the money into research this stuff, right? There's no financial payoff at the end of it, right? There's no drug to sell, pharmaceutical drug to sell, but people use this stuff. People swear by it. It's been used for a long time as well. And just because it's not proven in research doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means you have to try it yourself, right? It's anecdotal evidence. And you got to be willing to try this stuff if you want to get the results. So cold plunge, this stuff has actually been studied in Japan for a while, 1991. And what they were doing is they were looking at the effects of hormones after doing cold plunging and then resistance training or some type of exercise, right? So it's very common to believe that we should do exercise and then cold plunge for recovery. That's not the case unless you're doing cardio, right? Or MMA or something like that, right? Where your body has been hurt. If you're doing resistance training, CrossFit, lifting weights, do your best to cold plunge before do that if you can, right? I know having a cold plunge in your house isn't available to everyone. There's cold showers. I showed an example. I think, did you get it, Joey? The cold shower.
I did.
Yeah.
I got it. Yeah, I've received it.
Okay, cool. So that's something you can experiment too. I know you work out early, so it's going to be super, super hard for you. Not hard to do this, but it's going to take a lot. But the studies on this are pretty solid as well. It's cold exposure and then exercise has so many benefits. One of them being a testosterone boost, right? And there's a guy in the States who posts a lot about this on Instagram. He's a functional doctor. And this is just one, I took a screenshot of his Instagram video. I'll share it in the group after, but again, it's just one client, right? But one client, 30 days of committing to this, 316 to 919, massive, massive increase.
Just with that alone?
Just with that alone, right? So
Wow.
again, this is probably not a permanent change, right? It's not going to, but if this is something that you can get into your routine, I have a cold plunge here now. I do it every morning. It's gotten to the point where I love it so much, I have to stop myself doing it too much because I want to do it. Like it's something that you get addicted to. It's a dopamine rush, right? So if you have access to a cold plunge or a cold shower and you can try this for 30 days as a challenge, I suggest you give it a go. It also, you can go so much harder in the gym too. If you do it within 30 minutes of exercising, right? Obviously the closer the better. Your body temperature is already pre-cooled before you exercise and you don't sweat as much. You can go harder. It's kind of like cooling for a car engine, it's powerful stuff. So in terms of cold exposure, experiment with this. That's something I love, and it's something that I think is very promising as well. But again, it's something that everyone has to try and see how it works for themselves. Okay, that was the cold part. Let's go into the hot part. Very funny and controversial thing, ball tanning, right? So this is something that it's esoteric, or actually maybe it's not esoteric, right? A lot of people make fun of this. And again, this is hard to do depending on where you live, right? You can't just go outside naked and tan your balls. But if you can, try it. There's also the lamps I showed you before. So the reptile lamp, the UVB lamp, you can definitely do it with that. People also do it with red light therapy. This is Ben Greenfield. He's like a health and wellness influencer and coach, but he's also he's someone who like is not afraid to experiment with things, and he's written and talked about this quite a lot. And again, it's not scientific evidence; it's his anecdotal evidence, but he's a fan of it. And then this is the nutrition detective. So he is a doctor. He's a bit of a Chad doctor. I've mentioned him a few times. He's part of the vitamin A disrespected crowd. So there's this group of people who believe that vitamin A is not a vitamin; it's actually a poison, right? And I won't get into that because that's a whole another lecture, and I don't know where I stand on that yet. But he did a thread on Twitter talking about this as well, and he believes it's science. And I'll try to link this for you guys right now. He thinks that, as he says here, like the ball sack has thin skin, right, which means light easily penetrates it. And as we know from the skin, again, the skin is an endocrine organ. It has a direct link with our hormones. That's why when we if we rub toxins onto our skin, ends up in our bloodstream. That's the bad side of it, right? Like bad cosmetics, sun cream, shit like that. But we also rub iodine, magnesium on the skin topically. They affect us as well. It's a topical thing. So he believes that when people are sunning their balls, what's actually happening is UV light is penetrating and it's detoxing something. He believes it's detoxing vitamin A, and that is why people are experiencing surges in testosterone. I've done this quite a lot as well, right? This is something I experimented with a lot. And again, like this is just one man's story, but I would notice things like in a crazy way with my libido and with my testosterone the same day as I did this, right? So all I'm going to say is like, if you can try to experiment with this, try to do it. Just keep a journal or a log and see what happens. But it is very controversial in the space because it's kind of stupid, right? It seems stupid, like going outside and tanning your balls. It comes from like a Taoist thing as well. Taoist like sexual energy. So it's not some new thing, but it's really interesting. Okay. Again, I'm blasting through like the protocols, which taking a little bit off the scale. But this one, I mentioned this in the detox course, right? I've done this one myself as well. So this is the niacin sauna infrared detox protocol. This is pioneered by doctors, and this is a heavy detox, right? So it takes a lot. I won't lie, it's a 30-day protocol. You've got to buy a shitload of vitamins, and you have to sauna for more than an hour every day. And super, super hard if it's a traditional sauna. If it's an infrared sauna, it's a lot easier. I did it with an infrared sauna. My girlfriend has one of these. Lucky, I have a traditional. And I was interested in this because I got really into detoxification and learning about it. And then when I read his book on this, he started talking about testosterone as well. This thought of that, like detoxing is a way to restore testosterone, isn't just his opinion. It's quite common. And so I did this protocol. If this is something you want to try, anyone, I'm happy to like walk you through how to get set up because it is a lot to get set up, and I learned a lot about how to do it. It's intense, right? It takes a lot of time. So what you have to do is you have to you buy a bunch of vitamins, right? Because you're going to be sweating a lot, and you will take niacin. Niacin is vitamin B3. It creates a flush response, so it's expanding and dilating your capillaries, your blood vessels, and every day you take a little bit more niacin because your body adapts to it really, really fast. So you get this intense flush. You go red. It's like you've been sunburned. You're hot and you're cold. Like your body is, and it releases the over 400 detoxification enzymes in your system. And then what you do is you wait a bit of time. You do some cardio, 30 minutes, to kickstart your lymphatic system. We spoke about that during detox. Your lymphatic system is one of your internal detox systems. And then you get in the sauna for 45 minutes and then 30 minutes while drinking a certain calcium, magnesium drink. You're also taking charcoal as a binder. Whole idea of this is any toxins that are stored in your fat are liberated and pushed out of your system. And so again, it's really intense. I did it, and once I finished it, it was amazing how I felt in the mind and in the body. Right, directly after. I did it after I'd spent 2 weeks in China, just completely like exposed to so many toxins. So that's another protocol. This one, again, don't try this one. If you're taking anything from today, it's got to be the light and the breathing. Don't start with something like this. Okay, I'm going to talk about two of the last ones, right? Now, this is where we get really esoteric, but there is this book. It is so funny. It's called Big Natural Testicles. It was written in 2014. It's an ebook. I'll send it to you guys if you want it. Obviously, like hilarious, the graphic design of this, but they talk about all the esoteric protocols of testosterone. And they also talk about all the non-esoteric protocols about like how to eat, how to train, how to get sunlight, what supplements you need. So it has great information in it. And then it goes into the esoteric, right? And one of the things it talks about is called iodine ball painting. So we just talked about topical exposure of sun to the balls. Iodine, I don't know if you guys know what iodine is. It's the most important detoxification mineral, right? It's in fish, it's in seaweed, very high in Japan because they have a lot of fish and seaweed. But people will rub it on themselves as a way to topically detoxify because it's absorbed through the skin. And so I haven't tried this myself. So again, I'm going to put that out there. But there are people that do something called the iodine ball painting protocol. They literally get iodine and paint it on their balls every day, right? Same concept as the sun. You will topically absorb them into your balls, and that will do something. Again, I believe that it's just detoxifying something. Just like the sun is detoxifying vitamin A, I believe this might be doing that too. Same concept, different compound. So, yeah, just wanted to share it with you because it's very esoteric and there is no science on this. I got to be honest, but if you want to experiment with it, give it a try. The last one, which I knew would come up, no FAP, right? So just not ejaculating, not masturbating, shouldn't be watching porn anyway. This one has been extensively spoken about by Andrew Huberman, and he says in his podcast on this that you will have a huge spike in testosterone after 7 days, but it doesn't last. It's a spike and then it plateaus off. So maybe it's a good short-term tool to experiment with, right? Especially if you're trying to conjure up people. People say you conjure up energy, you conjure up focus. Maybe that's because of the testosterone effect it has, but something to experiment with as well. And that's it. So they are the protocols. I just want to go back. Just one last reminder, and sorry if I sound like a broken record, but the easiest things to implement here and the most important are the light and the breathing protocols. Most important because they affect more than just testosterone. They affect sleep, they affect mood, they affect dopamine, libido, everything. The cold exposure is a really interesting one to try as well. I do that. Ball tanning too. And then these last through, so the no-FAP, the iodine ball painting, and the nice and infrared protocol, those are ones that you can experiment with, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you've tried all these. And that is it. Were there any questions that come up during this for anybody?
So I gotta get my shower thing going. I got it, but I'm too big of a weenie right now. I tried to spin my shower on cold, and I was like, "Holy shit!" And because this thing's got ice cubes, I mean, you put in it, so I was like,
"Yeah,
I gotta inch my way into it. I gotta start doing it though, because it's super. The one that you got, super easy, suction cup, right under the shower head, and then when you're done, just pull it down. I mean, it's like less than 30 seconds. It's like super easy. So I just got to start doing it. I want to start doing it like first thing, get up and just hit that. Because I got a very small window to get ready and get out the door. So
yeah. Maybe we should do a 30-day cold shower challenge in the community because it's hard. It's hard to force yourself to get in there, especially when the sun isn't up, right? So much easier when it's warm and it's sunny, but 100% worth it. I think it's a life-changing thing. It just becomes something that you hate and dread. Like after a week of doing it, you start to love it, and you can't live without it. It's amazing.
Yeah, that was encouraging when you said that you were like, you actually are like addicted to it now. Because I was like, oh, okay, so it's like something that you start doing and then you like start liking it. I need to start doing it now. So it's summer here right now. I need to do it now because I know once it gets wintertime here, and it's like cold in the house when you wake up.
You want to be ready for that.
Yeah,
what,
I want to be used to it by then. That way, when it's no big deal. And like you said, like maybe if it gives me some kind of like dopamine spike and stuff, I'll want to do it.
yeah. I mean,